Hey, what's happening, guys? Dan Darrow here from the Alpha Team, and this is the earnings on the radar for the week of February 10th. So we have kind of an interesting lineup of earnings coming up. However, it is a slightly slower week as opposed to last week, and also slightly slower compared to what's coming up next week. So, kind of an interesting window for maybe some digestion, right? Some stocks, starting to stabilize after a really busy week or really sharp move on a lot of stocks last week. So, as we get into earnings like the next few days, just be mindful that stocks that have had huge runs and with options kind of bid up a bit could be a bit tougher setup. So, just want to be aware of that as you start to like look and potentially map out some plays for earnings this week. All right. After the close today, Monday, a couple of gaming stocks, Activision's pricing at 5.5 points. Um, it's going through a merger with Microsoft. My rule is usually to avoid playing earnings on stocks going through mergers. Tend to see lower volatility. Um, what's interesting about this is that the stock is closer to like the bottom of its trading range since the merger. But I mean, as far as like a trade going into earnings, I'll probably wait until after the numbers are out. Also, another gaming stock, Take Two. About $9 is what's expected. It's a bit more interesting because it shrugged off some weak numbers from EA, but now it's started to turn lower. Got hit really hard on last quarter, and right now options are only pricing about half of what it moved back in November. So, if it moves anywhere near what it moved in November, options leave some room. But pricing wise, options, not what I guess would consider cheap. Also, Pinterest after the close, so 375 is what they're looking for. I mean, I was kind of hoping it wouldn't move on Meta's results, but I mean, I'm not surprised that it did. Had a really nice consolidation, and thought if it went to earnings around here, it could be a really big mover. Probably still could be a big mover, but also a little bit different setup. I'm thinking about playing options like lower debit strangles further out of the money. Snap moved close to 20% on its report. Meta moved 20% on its report. So, I mean, if Pinterest does something similar, that could be what, five to maybe like $6 move, whereas options are priced in 375. So maybe there's some potential there. Before the open on Tuesday, there's really only one name, Royal Caribbean. Let me get rid of this. They're priced in 475. It's nothing that really stands out as me super interesting. I mean, there's other names coming up in the week that are probably better setups, so I'm not going to do anything there. After the close on Tuesday, Chipotle about 106, 107, somewhere around there is what they're looking for. I mean, if there was ever a stock that needed a split, Chipotle would be it. It's hard to trade equity wise, it's hard to trade option wise, and I tend to avoid it because of the low liquidity. So I doubt I'm going to do anything with it. Um, EMPH. So this is kind of an interesting one. About 29 points is what they're looking for. It was a solar leader up until December, and then it just fell apart. Last few quarters have been huge beat and raises, and the stock is well off the high from December. So it does seem like there's some potential. I mean, I guess both ways too, because if they miss, the valuation is a little bit higher, actually quite a bit higher than some of its peers. So there could be room lower if they do miss too. I was thinking solar stocks as like a whole could react to this because it's really like a prominent name reporting, and there aren't many other names reporting this week in solar. So I mean, think about like SunPower, Solar Edge, First Solar potentially even could move off of this. FTNT also Tuesday after the close about 525, but those are monthly options, so they go through next week. There are a couple cyber reports during the week. Maybe I'll look at like a Simply Play for like Palo Alto, CrowdStrike, just because you do have like a cluster of cyber reports. But this group has been a little bit worse in terms of like action, and I'm on the fence. So maybe I'll wait and see how FTNT looks, and then maybe hop in because there's some other names coming up later in the week that could be more volatile. For the open on Wednesday, CVS, so 325 is what's priced in. Healthcare has been a really tough spot year to date. CVS is hanging right underneath its October low. I don't think I'm going to have options into the print, but this is something I'm going to be watching that day, as it does tend to move well on earnings days. Uber, so about 3.5 points is what they're looking for. kind of interesting setup because you can see it's starting to tick through the top of like this long multi-year downtrend. So I mean, if it could really deliver a good report, this could be the start of a material breakout. I guess I'd probably be more focused on the bull side, but a disappointing print could also knock this back down into like the high 20s pretty quick. Lift reports later in the week, so I don't think that's going to work as a sympathy play because earnings for Lyft, options for Lyft are pricing in earnings. After the close on Wednesday, Affirm, so about 3.5 points is what they're looking for. After the huge year-to-date rebound, I mean, it's really going to have to deliver. Stock was lifeless for months into the end of 2022 and surged since the start of the year. Last quarter wasn't good. Now, to me, I feel like the bar is probably higher after the stock doubled. Um, so I'm on the fence with it. I mean, I think one of the bigger hurdles is maybe the option pricing, but it could be a game time decision because I mean this stock can occasionally move quite a bit. Disney, so about 675 is what they're looking for. Um, it's just another stock that's had a really big year-to-date move going into earnings. Last quarter wasn't great, and they're going to have to deliver it to really maintain the current rally. So I feel like this is a tougher setup. And also option pricing is a bit higher than I like, so might be more of like a day after focus versus taking options into the report. Before the open on Thursday, a couple pharma names, AbbVie, AstraZeneca. Pharma's just really been under pressure for a few weeks, and I'm not trying to pick bottoms in this group, so I don't have much interest in playing either of these two. But I will say that AbbVie has been hit pretty hard on earnings 3 quarters in a row, so could be more susceptible. A few staples report Thursday. I'm not doing anything with them. Under Armour, so about $1.25 is what they're looking for. It is up a bunch going into earnings, but as you can see when I scroll out, it does have this really clear gap, which it's now into. Um, Last couple of quarters have been a bit more subdued movement-wise, but holiday quarter stock is into that gap. So maybe a better setup for volatility. And actually, the option pricing doesn't seem too crazy either, so maybe it leaves some room. After the close on Thursday, so this is what I was saying. So Cloudflare, $8 is what's priced in. So we're gonna have to wait and see where this is Thursday afternoon because there are a couple other cybersecurity reports during the week, but I mean, it kind of seems like an interesting setup. I mean, it's just moving out of the downtrend. It has like a history of some bigger moves. Should have room higher. Should have room lower. I know I would like to see the option prices come down from where they're at right now. But if they don't, I'd probably have to get risk lower because pricing might not leave a ton of room. But I mean, this is the type of report that could move, say, like CrowdStrike, Datadog, Zscaler, etc., Okta maybe even. So those would be some names to watch off of this Cloudflare earnings. Expedia, so about 9.5 points was priced in here. I'd say like every 2 to 3 quarters, Expedia has like a larger swing on earnings. I mean, I think currently the technical setup is a bit better. It's hanging right above like 6 7 months resistance, but it's just I just haven't been trading travel names much, so I might wait and see how this goes, or maybe I might even look at like maybe like some sympathy play on Airbnb or Booking, but this is a bit less consistent, and with options priced into 9.5, it's kind of tough. I mean, if it moved huge every quarter, then I'd say okay, maybe that's justifiable, but I mean the stock doesn't move huge every quarter, and with options pricing in 9.5, it's a little bit different, a little bit more difficult to lay out that type of money. Lyft. So again, Uber reports earlier in the week. It should definitely impact Lyft. And the thing to consider, well, Lyft is priced in 275, but the thing to consider with this is that it doesn't always have the same type of numbers as Uber. So if it drops on Uber, it still could pop on its own, or if it pops on Uber's results, it still could drop on its own. So don't necessarily assume just because Uber is good or bad that Lyft will be the exact same. And then lastly on Thursday after the close, PayPal. So this is a big one. About 775 is what's priced in. I've kind of mixed opinions on the setup. One hand looks better, begins to move through some like downturn resistance, but with options just a little under 8, pricing seems pretty high to me. I don't have a feel for direction, so I'd probably need to play this both ways, and I'm just really not sure if options leave enough room for it to do that. So I'm on the fence. Um, Square, so sorry, not Square, Block will occasionally move with this, but the correlations is not as high as it once was. So this is really going to be a game time decision. And then Friday before the Open, there's nothing of interest. So Thursday's going to be Thursday's probably going to be one of the biggest afternoons slash probably like the main event of the week in terms of like who's on the calendar. So um, we'll see. We'll see. We'll see. But I mean, there are some big names, are some big price to moves, and let's hope for some good action. All right. So if you like this video, be sure to stop by the Alpha Team room and um, check out our room. I mean, I do go over a lot of these setups the day of, and if the option pricing changes or the setup changes, we kind of like talk through like the thought process behind that. So if you're looking for more color on some of these earnings plays, come hang out in the Alpha Team room, all right? So have a great night. Best of luck if you're playing anything, and I will talk to you.